This machine is called the bench grinder. Now the use for the bench grinder, it's meant for grinding or sanding metal. And the way the bench grinder works, there's an on button right here, or there should be one similar or somewhere on a place like what you see here. And after you turn it on, there's going to be two grinding stones, one on either side, one on the left and one on the right. It's an abrasive material that when it rubs against a piece of metal like this one right here, it's going to sand or grind away anything that it touches. Now the first safety rule has to deal with what you're wearing. The first thing, of course, is you have to make sure that, one, you have your safety glasses on. Two, you need to make sure that all loose hair is tied back, long hair is tied back, and any loose clothing is secured, long sleeves are rolled up, hoodie strings are tucked in. The other thing that's important is you should have some kind of protective safety gloves on, like the ones I have here. These safety gloves are going to protect you so that way any sparks, sharp edges, or anything that could possibly hurt you while using the machine are not going to hurt you. So these ones that are cut resistant that I have in class, they work just fine, so you need a pair of safety gloves as well. Now there's a couple things I want you to be aware of when you're using the bench grinder itself. First, we want to make sure that these little guards are between us and the spinning wheel. So we want to be looking through the guard or the small little shield. That way if something bad happens, we're protected by a second layer of Lexan, something that's going to be protecting our eyes or body if something goes wrong. The next thing we want to make sure that we take a look at is we want to make sure that whenever we're sanding or grinding, we want to make sure that our workpiece, in this case this piece of metal right here, is resting on this little platform here. You can call it either a platform or in some cases you can call it a tool rest. So keep your piece of metal always on the tool rest, never above or on the side. The tool rest is going to provide support and it's going to keep your metal from moving up, down, or anywhere else it should not go. Another thing to keep in mind is whenever you're using the machine, you want to keep your hands and body parts as far away from the moving parts, in this case the grinding stone, as possible. If you have to get really close, I would say try to keep your fingers or body parts at least 3 inches away. If you're not sure how long that is, you can always just kind of look at the tool rest, which is about 1 inch long, and add on or double that and make it at least 2 or 3 back, so hold your hands a little bit further back. We don't want to get our hands close to it or down towards this little space where there's a crack and you can see the grinding stone goes through and back to the table or the machine itself. Another safety rule is when you're going to grind or sand something, you don't want to take the metal and just jam it in there as hard as you can, because this thing is a composite stone. It's like a man-made stone material. If you jam something in there and there's a huge impact, it's going to shatter or break this apart, which that's unsafe. So whenever you go to sand or grind something, put it on the table and lightly push against, and you'd be surprised with how light of a pressure you need just to make this work. And then all you need to do is just move your metal around. In some cases, like this metal tube that I have here, if I want to sand away any of these sharp edges or the burrs on the outside, usually what I do is I put it on the table, hold it at an angle, and then I'll just lightly rotate it like this until I get everything ground down to where I need it to be. Another important thing when you're using the machine, well, two things actually. One, even though you can see there's 2 grinding wheels and 2 little platforms, tool rests, I want to only see in this class, we only have 1 person using the machine at a time. If there's 2 people, 1 on either side, it gets way too crowded, and unfortunately we'll have an issue where someone might accidentally bump another person and then the other person gets hurt. So only 1 person using the machine at a time. Now, the other thing that's important is when you're using the machine and you're holding onto a metal piece or a work piece, you want to make sure that you hold on nice and tight. You don't have to death grip it really hard, but at the same time don't hold it so loose that it just jumps and falls out of your hands. So firmly grasp it and hold onto it tight so it doesn't go anywhere. Once you are done grinding an edge on a piece of metal, you don't really want to touch it with your gloves or your bare hands because it's probably hot from all the friction. I mean, you're going to see sparks shooting off of it. That should give you an idea of how hot it is, because the sparks, of course, get to the point where the pieces are almost at the point where they're melting a little bit. So after you're done sanding or grinding, you want to immediately take it, and there should be little buckets of water, kind of like this one right here. Take it and dip it in the water and swirl it around a little bit. This is going to help cool it down so it's a safe temperature to touch. Another good rule of thumb for class is whenever you're around a piece of metal, I don't care if it's yours or someone else's, try not to have the mindset of something, it doesn't look hot, which means that it's cool to touch and safe to touch. always assume that this thing's going to burn you like a hot cookie sheet would, or an oven. So never just grab something assuming that it's not hot.